Hello and welcome to another Giant Slayer TFT How to Play video. Today our analysts will be diving into how to play Syndicate for patch 12.2. Syndicate has been a meta composition for a few patches now, and in 12.2 it's still doing well despite a few minor nerfs. The current meta does seem to favor assassin-based compositions, and Syndicate is one of the best with two strong assassin carries available. We'll be diving into the core champions, traits, items, and augments, as well as a brief look at each stage of the game and potential comps to transition into. With all that said, let's go ahead and get started. But before we begin, please don't forget to click the links in our description. Give your support to everyone who helped make this video happen. We host many TFT tournaments with plenty of exciting content to come. Be sure to also follow our Giant Slayer TFT social media pages. Alright, let's get back to the video. Let's get the easy part out of the way and go over the core champions and traits for Syndicates. This part is easy because, honestly, Syndicate is a simple comp at its core. Either you're playing 5 or 7 Syndicates plus a bunch of assassins. The two main carries are Shaco and Akali, with Echo as the backup utility assassin. And that's really all there is to it. You can play Syndicate units with assassins and call it a day. Okay, there's a little bit more, but there's not a ton of planning required for this comp. The core composition with 7 Syndicates is going to be Shaco, Akali, Braum, Zyra, Darius, Twisted Fate, and Echo plus one other assassin. In this example, you'll either need to put an emblem on Echo or another assassin, or simply have a heart augment to boost your Syndicate by 1. Let's switch over to when you don't have 7 Syndicates. In that case, you can drop Twisted Fate, keep the 4 Assassin, and add in utility like Taric or Janna, or simply more frontline if necessary like Leona. 6 Assassin is an option, but again, you need an emblem or augment for that. Overall though, as we said, this composition is easy to put together, which is one of the boons to playing it. As for the main carry, either you're going to go for Shaco 3 or Akali 2. Shaco 3 is slightly easier to hit, though be aware of anyone contesting you. Akali 2 can be difficult to hit on level 8, but a strong enough Syndicate board can easily go to level 9 when upgrading Akali becomes a lot easier. There's also the option of running Twisted Fate 3 carry with reroll Syndicates, but that is very niche. Talon carry with the Syndicate emblem is also niche but playable. Let's continue on to the next section, core items. Now this is where the composition truly shines because there's a lot of ways to itemize the champions. There are a few standard go-to items such as Infinity Edge being the overall best in slot for most assassins, but besides that, you can flex to a lot of different items. First off, let's talk about the two main carries, Shaco and Akali. Shaco is the basic boy of the group, with his items being generic AD items like Infinity Edge, Last Whisper, Guardian Angel, Runaan's Hurricane, RFC, and Quicksilver. Infinity Edge is the only must-have since it increases his damage output by a boatload. Beyond that, pick some additional AD items, some utility, and you're good to go. Akali's best in slot is also Infinity Edge since he's an assassin, but after that there's no definitive must-haves on her. Blue buff is great but not always needed, Hand of Justice adds some damage and healing, but healing in general isn't necessary for a Syndicate comp, and Guardian Angel is an all-around useful item as it is on Shaco. Ionic Spark can also be used to reduce the magic resist of enemies, and any other AP items are great for added damage. Basically, find an IE and toss whatever else you want onto Akali. Benefit to Akali leaning towards AP items is that you can run Twisted Fate as an early game item holder until you find an Akali and then transfer the items over to her. Besides the two main carries, you can also give items to Echo, Braum, early game Twisted Fate, Zyra, and even Talon if you want to use him as the main carry. Echo is the most common to itemize after Shaco or Akali, with his two best being Frozen Heart and Morellonomicon. Locking on Echo is also quite useful after buffing the item. Ionic is another option, though usually that's preferable onto Akali. Braum items are generic defensive items, and honestly you're not really looking to invest too much into him. All you want from Braum is for him to cast once a round and survive long enough for your assassins to murder the enemy backline. Twisted Fate items, as mentioned earlier, can be given to Akali, so items like Blue Buff, Infinity Edge, and Jewel Gauntlet are decent, or Morellonomicon to give to Echo later. Finally, Talon as a carry is doable, but you absolutely need a Syndicate emblem. After that, IE is standard, and RFC provides some extra attack speed and prevents the melee pathing issues getting in the way of him doing damage. The other best unit to put Syndicate on is usually Echo since he's part of the core comp. Beyond champion-specific items, Shroud and Zephyr are always really good for assassin boards because the late game positioning is key to winning rounds. Shroud in particular can be game-winning in the late game, so we recommend trying to grab one if presented the option. Up next is another important section, Augments. Bottom line when it comes to augments is to choose what works best for the current situation and not to bait yourself into any particular path. That means you may not want to take the Syndicate emblem on 1-4 even if you're wanting to play Syndicates because there's a likely chance that you don't hit anything later on. That said, there are some specific augments that you can take that may or may not be useful later on, but help your early game out a lot. One such augment on 1-4 is Payday. Payday gives you 1 gold per surviving Syndicate champion when you win the round. It's not a lot, but Syndicate openers can be quite strong. We don't recommend taking this if you don't already have a Twisted Fate and Darius, but if you do have them, it can earn you some extra money in Stage 2. Keep in mind that this isn't the best option a lot of the time, but as far as silver augments go, it's not too bad. Besides that, any augment that gives you additional gold or experience is the standard go-to on round 1-4. Stick to the basics and you'll find more specific options that are better suited for you in future augments. Speaking of, 3-3 augments is a great time to begin picking up trait-specific augments like emblems, hearts, or even things like One For All, Cutthroat, or Smoke Bomb. Passive buffs can also do well at this point in the game since you should be able to at least have a Shaco 1 or another assassin carry in stage 3. Knife's Edge, for example, is really good for assassins since hitting hard with auto attacks is part of their damage. One thing to note is that the healing augments aren't necessary for syndicates as the trait already provides enough healing, so only take augments like Celestial Blessing if you have no other viable options. Finally, the 4-6 augment is mainly about buffing your existing board with either emblems, passive buffs, or gaining additional items and components. Portable Forge, for example, is a fantastic option on 3-3 or 4-6 because quite a few of the Ornn artifacts can be great on assassins, and since now it's a gold augment, it's a viable option to pick. Otherwise, this is the best time to grab any emblem or heart augments that open up your composition for more things like 7 syndicates or 6 assassins. All in all, syndicates have some neat augment options and are one of the best comps to make use of emblems. Alright, that covers the bulk of how to go about building the comp. Let's now switch over to take a quick look at each stage of the game, beginning with the early game. Starting off, let's talk about component priority on the opening carousel. Sword and Glove are definitely top priority since you definitely want at least one Infinity Edge in the comp, regardless of what champion is your carry. The tier can also be a decent opener since Twisted Fate is a fantastic early game carry, and opening with a blue buff is strong on him and gives you the option to pivot later on if necessary. Otherwise, look for defensive components to use for an early game advantage. As it was buffed this patch, Laka is actually quite good as an opener now and stays relevant for most of the game, so grabbing a chain vest gives you a lot of good options early on in the game. Moving into stage 1, there's not too much here that isn't standard other than looking for early syndicates. Hitting TF2 or Darius 2 can be a quick way to win rounds and gives you a great place to transition from in the mid game. Overall, don't fret too much about your opening board. Stage 2 is similar, just play the strongest board you can as winning is ideal for this comp to save health in the mid game. The other option is opening with Yordles to use for extra econ, but that may be difficult as Yordles are quite contested these days. Playing to win also benefits syndicates as you'll be level 5 on 2-5, which means you can hit an early Shaco or 2-star 2-cost assassin like Talon or Katarina. Hitting any of those is a surefire way to win the rest of stage 2 and has a great setup for stage 3. With that, into the mid game we go. Ideally, we want to skip past stage 3 with minimal gold spent, though you may need to roll on 3-2 or 3-3 if your board is super weak and you've already lost a lot of health. In that case, the goal is to roll for Shaco, Echo, or 2-star 2-cost assassins. Assuming stage 3 went smoothly, stage 4 is where we're going to be making the tough decision of either sticking to level 7 and rolling for Shaco 3 or pushing to level 8 to find a Kali. What determines this is how many Shacos you have, how many players are contesting Shaco, and what your board state is on 4-1. If you're winning rounds already and have high health, pushing to 8 is better because finding a Kali is generally a better transition into late game. If you need to roll to stabilize and Shaco isn't too contested, then you can stay on level 7 to hit Shaco 3. In that case, you'll likely be staying on 5 syndicates unless you high roll in a Kali on 7, but never plan for that to happen. And finally, the late game is where syndicates can be a bit hit or miss. If you've managed to hit Shaco 3 or a Kali 2 in stage 5 and 6, congratulations, you're likely to finish in the top 2 or 3. Otherwise, you may have to settle for a 4th. The syndicates will fall off at this stage of the game if you haven't been hitting your upgrades. Luckily for syndicates, the only expensive late game champion is a Kali, so you can generally hit the majority of your board quite easily. Level 9 is doable. Your stage 5 goes well, and you're able to sit on 50 gold econ, though level 9 is primarily only used to hit a Kali 2 as there's no major power spikes beyond that. The ultimate goal for this composition is to either hit 7 Syndicate or 6 Assassin with Shaco 3 and a Kali 2. The truly important skill to learn for the late game syndicates is positioning because you need to sweat your positioning to win. That means constant scouting and repositioning of Echo, Shaco, and a Kali. Avoid having your Shaco get stuck on hard-to-kill frontliners and have Echo jump into the largest clump of enemy units. Kali can really do whatever she wants, but avoid having her jump into CC as that's the easiest way to get her killed. Besides that, keep your non-assassins on either your 3rd or 4th hex. Ground positioning can be important, but it depends a lot on the lobby. Overall, focus your efforts in the late game on constant scouting and positioning, and you're likely to place 1 or 2 spots higher than you would have otherwise. Our final transition is a quick one as there are a few compositions that you can transition to if Syndicate just isn't working out during your game. The most common will be pivoting into a different assassin's composition, either Talon Imperial or Katarina. It's not a perfect pivot, but you should have decent AD items for this transition or items to give to Katarina. Other AD comps like Urgot or Challengers are definitely possible to pivot into, but it does require swapping out a lot of your board. Another potential transition is into Arcanist off of an early Twisted Fate opening board. With blue buff and Infinity Edge, you can aim to play Lux carry later on with an IE, JG, and blue buff as your items. Arcanist will be inconsistent, but it's definitely the best all-around AP transition you can make from an early Syndicate board. That's it for today's video, folks. Assassin players should be rejoicing at the current meta, which favors that style of play. Syndicates are definitely one of the best options for it, but as we said, keep your options open as playing flexibly is still one of the best ways to play in the current meta. Let us know in the comment section below which composition you would like us to cover in our next How to Play video. Thank you for watching, and if you're enjoying our content, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for future Giant Slayer TFT videos.